Hello everybody, it's Andy Mack here, just bringing you a brief update. As you may know, I'm doing a project for my miniatures, 50mm miniatures, for the 1685 Monmouth Rebellion in England, and I thought today, on my way up from the southwest, I would stop off at the battlefield of Sedgemoor itself. This is where Monmouth's rebellion ended. On this day, 341 years ago, they actually attacked in the early hours of the morning. I think they started from Bridgewater, which is over there, that kind of direction. Sorry, over this kind of direction, behind Chedsoy, and then they marched along towards Bristol, where they then, I understand, left their baggage to continue on towards Axbridge, which is up towards Bristol area, suggesting perhaps Monmouth did still have intentions to get a victory here and then go and take Bristol. And then his army turned off the Bristol road and then came down this lane, which I believe is Bradney Lane, or an adjacent lane from this direction. Behind us here is what we call the Polden Hills, which is a ridge line of hills that separates the Somerset levels, kind of north and south Somerset levels, and these hills were patrolled by King's forces. And I'll say on the morning of the 1685, on the 6th of July, it was very misty, and we're led to understand, and they started in the cover of darkness, and around about dawn or just before it, a shot rang out, which was probably a picket from the King's forces out in this sort of location or around this area, alerting the camp, which then subsequently put into place their alarm procedures, which I understand involved cavalry that was at the ready or near ready to then pin Monmouth's forces. It's a bit unsure whether or not what Monmouth's intentions was in terms of the infantry. The cavalry were instructed to attack the camp, and the infantry, it possibly was to support that attack and then support its withdrawal. As it happened, the cavalry were routed quite quickly, causing Monmouth's army in these fields to be isolated. A firefight took place. I mean, the rebel camp, where you can see, that there is Weston's Church, and the King's camp was just in the area, possibly the green fielded area. You can see in front of it, and then between the army's camp and here was a what they call a reen, which is a small water feature, which sort of a ditch filled with water that surrounded the camp area. And enabled a degree of barrier. It wasn't very deep, and it was probable that the scouts for the rebel army were aware that it wasn't very deep. So there is some debate whether or not the soldiers were flummoxed by the reen, or whether their instructions was to act in support of the cavalry, in the hope that the cavalry would break into the camp, cause disarray and casualties, and enable then the cavalry to withdraw and the infantry to withdraw back towards Bristol, securing a victory. To commit all the infantry may have been the case, but it is a bit confused. It is a bit unsure why they then stopped at the Pacific Rhine rather than continue into the camp to continue their firefight. Or it could have been that with the alarm, the Royalists were able to form their lines, and as a result, the Pacific Rhine formed a feature between the two lines whereby the firefight took place. In the event, the Monmouth's cavalry were quickly routed by the King's cavalry, and thereafter the Monmouth army were pinned by the cavalry on the flanks, and the artillery were brought up by the king, and obviously after a firefight that lasted some time, about an hour and a half or something like that, the rebel army routed. Now the rebel army did have a number of what they call scythemen and people with improvised weapons, where they use 8-foot poles with farming scythes welded or strapped to the end of, and it did cause a lot of concern for the king's army and militias that were on the campaign. And they did, it was suggested that they were able to keep the royalist cavalry at bay to a degree, and it was the actual fire from the cannon and the musketry that would eventually rout, and the prospect of the cavalry on the flanks that would rout the army. All matter of debate, and but that's my opinion on it. The scythes were feared, apparently. To what extent that's myth or reality, I don't know, but certainly it's all makes it a very interesting campaign. So these are the fields. The rout took place, and obviously the slaughter thereafter. The armies that were involved, it was about 3,000 or so rebels, and a similar number for the royalists. The royalists also have a number of militia, unreliable militia units in the village that was behind Weston-Zoyland called Middlezoy, and I think that was a 1,000 or so or more militia units there, but they were considered unreliable. So it was a total defeat for Monmouth, and causing the army to disband, and I think some 400 prisoners were captured, taken to the church, and I'll say on a later date I may visit the site more comprehensively and give you a look around, but I haven't got time today. And in the church, and 400 prisoners, and 22 were hanged in the environs of the church in and around Weston-Zoyland. Sorry, I might keep my focus on the area. And thereafter a sort of retribution happened across the southwest, which is remembered to this day, of terms of hanged, drawn and quartered in various villages that supported the rebellion, or people that came from those villages that supported the rebellion were taken to the villages, hung, drawn and quartered, and their limbs sort of nailed to the points around the locale to dissuade people in the future. It's 1685, obviously in terms of English terms it's fairly recent, so it was quite a dramatic medieval practice that was considered quite barbaric in the subsequent years after the Monmouth Rebellion, and it certainly deterred any future rebellion of a similar nature. So obviously in 1688 the what they call Glorious Revolution took place, where William of Orange came over and the Protestant kingship re-established after the war with James II in Ireland predominantly, and other locales. But yeah, that's part of history here today. So it was Monmouth Rebellion. In these fields the slaughter took place, many people died, and here we are on the anniversary, just having a look around. Obviously my project is coming on apace. I haven't done many updates. I've been doing another side project as well, which will feature quite soon, it's with the sort of wargaming genre of the Crimea, so it might be quite interesting to some people, but I'll bring you that feature later. It's not wargaming, but it's related, so I'll bring that to you quite soon. It's near its completion. I've just got to wait for a letter from the Surrey archive people to allow me to use a map of theirs, so that will be coming soon. Okay, thank you very much. Andy Mack at the Battle of Sedgemoor Field on the 6th of July 2026.